Hi, here's our presentation on public opinion, political socialization, campaigns, and elections.
Good afternoon. My name is Ivonne Pulido and I will be discussing public opinion. What is public opinion? Public opinion is the collective attitudes and beliefs of individuals on one or more issues. We hear public opinions around us almost every day, whether it's on television or in person within a group discussion. We even contribute to the public opinion. The importance of public opinion is reasoned with the importance of democracy. Without public opinion, there cannot be democracy. Quality of public opinion. The public opinion falls underneath two possible categories. One is informed and well-thought opinions, and the other is uninformed and ignorant opinions, opinions which are made off of the idea of their voice not being heard or important. An ideal public opinion derives from being informed, open to others and their ideas, open to compromise, and willing to participate voluntarily. Despite wanting an ideal public opinion, all who are able to provide their input are allowed to contribute, for their voice should be heard based off the principles of democracy. Influence of opinion leaders. Many voters look toward other people who are informed to base off their opinions and actions. This is a process in which the ill-informed people find sources to be up to date with the political issues in order for them to have an idea on what to vote on. This process is known as a two-step flow of information. This process that many take may save the public opinion from being based off ill-informed sources. Opinion leaders versus opinion followers. As stated in the previous slide, opinion followers search for opinion leaders to help them in their choices when voting. Opinion leaders are actually a group or a party that informs others based on their stance on an issue. Opinion followers are those who look for guidance to make their choices. Opinion leaders are usually people who have a higher education. Ways to measure public opinion. When it is time to find out the amount of people who sided with the issues and agreements or disagreements, polling, and elections are utilized. Polling is the use of scientific methods and technology to measure public opinion. Polls are the instrument through which public opinion is measured or the place where one goes to cast a vote, while elections are the formal process of voting candidates into office. Polling has many downsides due to the refusal to share viewpoints on topics and errors within the sample of polls itself. The polling that is most likely to be used due to its representation is a random sample chosen in which a way that any member of the population being polled has an equal chance of being selected. But no poll will be accurate and will include some sampling error. This error is known as a number that indicates within the range the results of a poll that are accurate. Polls. There are three different polls that the majority of the public will encounter. The first one is tracking polls. These are polls that keep track of data over time to detect changes in the support for people or issues. Exit polls are polls that are taken after voting in polling places. And the last one is fake polls that are not centered on measuring but intended to change public opinion.
Hi, my name is Alma Ledesma, and today I'll be talking about political socialization and voting. What is political socialization? It's the process of picking up values and commitments to regime to various social agents, like families, schools, religious institutions, peer groups, and the media. It's essential for any government because it helps citizens build a trust in the political system from a very young age. The way we grow up, how we're raised, our friends, and where we live influences the way you see the government and how much we trust our government. For example, if you grew up with conservative parents, your opinions will most likely be conservative. Another thing that influences your views is where you get your information from. If you get your news from websites like the Washington Post or BuzzFeed, more than likely your views are more liberal, since those sites tend to be liberal. Party identification. The tendency of members of the public to associate themselves with a particular party because they share its values, culture, policy preference, or social network. Parties tend to shape our views the most. If the party starts to shift towards policies that one didn't really like, the person is more likely to shift their opinions on it and leave the party. The party we choose also deals with characteristics like race, gender, education, where you live, and the generation to which you belong. For example, about 51% of white people tend to be Republican, while 41 tend to be Democrats. 60% of Latinos tend to be Democrats and 25 tend to be Republican. Data has shown America is getting more divided. Racial ethnic groups are starting to get bigger, and they usually tend to be Democrats, while older blue-collar evangelical rural rights tend to be Republican. Now more than ever, American voters are less likely to leave the comfort of their party for another one. Single-issue voters who make electoral choices based on a particular issue. Some voters pick candidates that they can relate to or feel like they represent them. For example, many people voted for Trump because they connected to his larger-than-life personality. Voting in the U.S. Voting is the ultimate way in which citizens can participate in a poll that counts. The United States has one of the lowest voter participation rates among industrialized democratic nations. About 55.7% of voters turned out for the last presidential election. Voter turnout, the percentage of the eligible population who turn out to vote in an election. Belgium, Sweden, Denmark, Australia, and South Korea have the highest voter turnouts. There are many reasons why some voters don't vote, ranging from disinterest to being prevented by legal barriers. Voting in the U.S. If only advantaged and educated voters who can afford the resources to learn about the issues and have time to cast an informed vote and go to the polls, then the vote won't represent what the majority of Americans want. The Electoral College was created because the Founding Fathers wanted all the citizens to vote for those positions that were open to popular election. Many people aren't able to vote because they simply don't have time or think that their vote will go to waste. Democrats want voting to be easier, and Republicans want to make it more difficult. Because if voting was easier and simpler, there would be more Democratic votes than Republican votes. Studies have shown that voter turnout rates would probably increase if Americans decided to reduce the legal barriers to voting.
Hi, I'm Cameron Harris, and I'll be talking about the presidential election and the campaigning process. An election is the formal process of voting candidates into office. The presidential election is held every 4 years and takes place in November. Along with the president, every congressman, a third of the Senate, and other state and local officials are also on this ballot every 4 years. During the presidential election, the highest voter turnout is during the general election. Voters get to choose the next president, which is the appeal. The election and campaign process is done in 3 steps throughout the following 4 years. Plans for the next presidential election begin as soon as the election finishes and the president is elected. These discussions are being made for the next election before the first State of the Union address. This period is called the invisible primary. This is where the candidates are sounding out support, testing the waters, and trying to decide whether to run. This all happens behind the scenes and out of the public eye. A candidate needs resources for their campaign. If they cannot get enough support during this period, it is unlikely they will run for president. This next step in the process of campaigning for president has multiple steps. First are the primaries and caucuses. The primaries are elections in which candidates from each party are chosen to run in the general election, and the caucuses are a local gathering of party members to choose convention delegates. The goal of these are to earn more delegates than the opponent to earn in the nomination from the party. New Hampshire and Iowa are where the first party primaries and caucuses are held, respectively. When other states try and be first for these events, it is called front-loading, or the process of scheduling presidential primaries early in the primary season. If this is the case, New Hampshire and Iowa will move their dates up again earlier in the year. The goal of these events is to become the frontrunner of the party. The frontrunner is the candidate who appears to be the likeliest to win the election at any given point in time. In order to become the frontrunner, candidates need to create more momentum by winning debates and trying to gain the advantage. The final step is all about party support and rallying the party. The main event during this period is the National Nominating Convention, a formal party gathering at which candidates for the general election are chosen. The party of the incumbent president goes last in this process, giving them the advantage in the general election. They gain the advantage of having the lead going into the general election to stay in the minds of the public. In the past, these conventions held serious discussions. Today, the party has had discussions and made decisions behind the scenes. The political parties need to have enough planned to keep media interest, and this is done by having enough speeches and events open to the public. The nominated candidate officially accepts the nomination at the end of the event.
Hi, I'm Dylan Taslim, and I'll be talking about the general election and the Electoral College. General election begins on Labor Day and lasts about 3 months. Winning the popular vote is not enough to guarantee election. Hillary Clinton 2016 and Al Gore 2000 both won the popular vote and were not elected as president. Electoral College was designed to prevent mob rule. The Electoral College is an intermediary body that elects the president, comprised of delegates who vote on the constituents' behalf. Electoral votes are distributed by state and population and members of Congress. The greater the state's population, the more votes they cast to a candidate. Every state has a minimum of 3 electoral votes. For example, California has 55, with Wyoming with 3. Every state besides Maine and Nebraska given all their electoral votes to the winner of their state. This is called winner-take-all. Maine and Nebraska use a formula to allocate the votes earned by the nominees based on congressional district and the winner of the state. The Constitution gives the states the right to change their electoral votes and how they are allocated. Congressional district, proportionally, or popular vote are all viable. National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. A state can decide to give all of their votes to the winner of the popular vote and not based on the Electoral College. Only viable when 270 electoral votes are in agreement. 12 states within the District of Columbia have agreed to this. The Electoral College was created because the Founding Fathers did not trust the people or Congress to elect the president fairly. Each state gets votes based on members of Congress, for example, 2 votes per senator, 1 vote per member of House. There are 538 possible votes, but 200 votes are required to win. The Electoral College has been both praised and criticized. It does not represent the majority of the population, but it does give smaller states more of a voice in the election process. Influencing the campaign. Most candidates do not campaign in certain states because of their history. For example, California almost always votes Democratically, and Texas almost always votes for the Republican candidate. Swing voters, approximately 1/3 of the electorates who are undecided at the start of a campaign. Swing states. States in which the outcome of a general election is not easy to predict. To name a few, Colorado, Michigan, Wisconsin, and maybe North Carolina, Virginia, and Minnesota.